Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with part 3 of my replay marathon from the Hunter and the Beast Early Access. So let's get right into it. This time HDS has taken his Lizardmen up against my vampire counts? Yes, I know, I'm playing vampire counts, but I figured let's try this matchup and see how hilariously broken the Dreadsaurian is. And yeah, so let's talk about this. I've got a pretty themed build, though. I do have a bit of a ghoul-themed build here. The Strigoi, the big boy Strigoi, the vampire lord type. The powerhouse in melee, not the most melee attack in the world, but of course anti-large, armor-piercing, has some great abilities as well to give himself more replenishment, additional armor-piercing, he has a ward save item, a power stone, and here we're specifically going to be looking for Soul Blight and Invocation. Soul Blight here is going to be paired with the ghouls, so we've got a couple units of ghouls here, 3 in total, including the Regiment of Renown, and 3 units of Crypt Horrors. I decided to try the Crypt Horrors because they did get a bit of a weapon strength buff in this last patch, so we'll see how they do. We've got 2 corpse carts. I just want to also explain the reasoning here. One corpse cart has no items or abilities. It just has a Necromancer with the Forbidden Rod and Vigor Mortis only. The other one is an actual Unholy Lodestone, and the Unholy Lodestone has a Necromancer with Raise Dead, so he can actually summon some zombies and act as AoE healing. Both of them, of course, will give Vigor Mortis to all these Crypt Ghouls and so on, which will be very important, rounding it out with the Dire Pack. As for HDS's Lizardmen, of course, the Shredder of Lustria here, very expensive. He's also got a High Slon, a Saurus Scarvet, some Red Crested Skinks, Saurus Spears, more spears out to the flanks, so a relatively light infantry line. Some Saurus, but no Temple Guard as you would potentially expect, probably because the Shredder of Lustria is so obscenely expensive. But yeah, gonna get an Arcane Unforging on the Strigoi there just to give him some recharge timer and to do a bit of direct damage. I would have maybe liked to have seen Tempest instead. It does look like he has Tempest, so he could be using that potentially to start doing some damage right out of the gates, but we'll see. Crypt Horror is gonna charge in a little bit prematurely and just get shredded. But it should be okay. Should be an okay situation. Not taking too much damage so far. But definitely Crypt Horrors. Obviously, we would expect them to beat Skinks even before, but they will do okay here. Against the Saurus Spears, maybe not so much, but we do have the sustainability of these Corpse Carts at the very least. And yeah, you can see the ghouls are starting to get up and around the flank here. And the ghouls, honestly, Crypt Ghouls have really good stats for a vampire count unit in terms of their attack and defense. They also have really good weapon strength. Their AP values are just not the best, but you can see the Shredder is absolutely shredding here, and the Slon's relatively protected. This unit of Crypt Horrors is pretty much done, but of course, once we drop down with the big boy Strigoi, start to do some damage to the High Mage, that will change a bit. Of course, the Soul Blight also tears away the armor of these units, and it's not like Saurus have a ton to begin with. That was kind of the thinking here, is because the Crypt Ghouls don't have the best AP, we can use the Soul Blight to kind of tear away some of the armor there. And the Strigoi is more powerful than, say, like Manfred in melee, so he can definitely cycle charge some dinos. You can see he drops down here, the Saurus Scarvet, gets a nice little hit in there. Meanwhile, the ghouls are just kind of, again, surrounding, and the horrors just kind of getting a good surround here, but the Saurus and the Skinks are definitely getting worn down, Lizardmen infantry, and I'm just using the Hounds and the Bats at any point to chase routing units, any of these routing Skinks or any other routing units that we can. But yeah, I do have to be careful. If the Shredder of Lustria hits the Strigoi a lot, he will take quite a bit of damage. Even just a couple of hits is potentially nasty, but Apotheosis there on the Saurus Scarvet, keeping him nice and healthy. So far, the Strigoi has been able to dodge or parry most of those attacks, but you can see once an attack does land, it is quite significant. It's a pretty good amount of damage, so yeah. Going to be rear charging here. Again, just cycle charging as much as I can with the geese, the Terror Geese, and using the mobile units to chase down routing units. You can see the Saurus over here. They literally have only been fighting zombies, but this just goes to show with enough unit models and with the Vigor Mortis from the Corpse Cart, these zombies will wear down even a unit of Saurus over time. I mean, they did fight 300 zombies plus here, but still, that's just, you know, by weight of numbers, the zombies will eventually win, right? And especially with the support of the Corpse Carts, that's why I'm such a fan. I especially like running this kind of dual Necromancer Corpse Cart situation. The the Forbidden Rod on the one gives you a huge mana battery, and having the Necromancer on the Corpse Cart gives him better regeneration and a much bigger HP pool of which to draw magic from for this Forbidden Rod, so that was kind of my thinking there. Yeah, potentially a really tough matchup for the Vampire Counts, but I do think that it's doable, certainly. Shredder of Lustria getting the Aura of Pretzels here, buffing the melee defense up to 61. That is nasty for a creature that size. And you can see I'm quickly approaching my healing cap on the Strigoi, despite the Opal Amulet giving me some resistances, and everything else. Of course, the Arcane Unforging certainly not helping. But, yeah, things are looking pretty good in terms of the balance of power. Again, I can use my bats and my hounds continuously to just keep chasing these routing Saurus and more, and then bring the zombies back around, keep cycle charging. But the Strigoi is getting very low at this point. That Arcane Unforging and some hits from the Saurus Scar Veteran actually bring him down, so that is going to equalize the balance of power pretty significantly. I mean, obviously, I still have the Necromancers as leadership units to help support here, and especially this one over on the far side with the Unholy Lodestone that has the zombie summons can keep summoning zombies, right? So it's not super bad to lose my Lord here. I mean, yeah, it sucks to not have the Terrorgeist damaging, but we've already done a ton of damage to most of the high-value targets here. The Shredder of Lustria, taken quite a bit already, so I'm pretty happy with the value that we've been able to achieve, and especially using these routing units, these two mobile squads to just chase routing units. Even though the Dire Pack are anti-large, hey, they'll do okay here. Nice banishment ripping apart this flank, but a little bit late. Yeah, the Crypt Ghouls probably will get taken out by that completely. Maybe not. Maybe they'll survive. Those Crypt Ghouls actually did quite well. 54 kills, racked up quite a few chevrons. Yeah, I do like the Crypt Ghouls quite a bit here in this matchup. And it's thematic to, of course, take them with the big boy Strigoi, and he is also pretty good in this matchup. As for the Horrors, I'm not really so sure. I think against a build with more Temple Guard, which is I think what you would expect in this matchup, they would not perform well at all. So I don't think you would want to take if you just trade the Crypt Horrors out for Graveguard, though. I think suddenly this build becomes pretty competitive. But yeah, you can see the one Necromancer just disintegrates there. That's fine. He was the one summoning zombies, but it's okay. We still have the second one to at the very least support leadership. And you can see the leadership of the Lizardmen getting very low here as the Shredder of Lustria is taking quite a bit of damage. I've got 2 XP chevrons on my Terra Goose from cycle charging, so we're going to continue to fast forward as that's pretty much it for it. The Lizardmen, they give up hope and go home. So yeah, I was able to pull out the win there. Honestly, at the end of the day, I don't think that build was necessarily ideal. I do think that the Dread Saurian can work here, but I don't know. It almost forces you into taking a Slaawn with healing, and I think it's just risky, honestly. I think you're better off to just go with the other monsters that are a bit cheaper, and then to just go wider. Obviously, Temple Guard are quite good here, especially the Regiment of Renowned Temple Guard with magic attacks. I would highly recommend, just in case of ethereal units, you never know. But yeah, as far as my build goes, if you were to just cut the Horrors and bring Graveguard instead, I think suddenly this build is decently competitive. Maybe you also trade out a couple things to try and bring some more mobile units, like maybe a couple of units of just even basic Black Knights to do some rear charging. Might help proc some terror routes and some different things. But yeah, pretty good stuff. Let's go on to the next replay. Alright, and we're back with Lord Croak and Gorok. Here, the Lizardmen, for it's going to be taking on Bretonnia. This is HDS once again. Of course, Gorok leading the way with Lord Croak. The Star Chamber Guardians are also a given here. We've got some horned ones, very interesting choice. Red-crested skinks, some more cold one spear riders, and some additional 2 hidden in the woods, including the Popopox cohort. Pretty narrow, focused Lizardman build. I like it quite a bit. As for my build for Bretonnia, we've got 3 Blessed Field Trebuchets. Yep, the Blessed Field Trebuchets. This no friendly fire is not super accurate. It still does friendly fire if the projectile directly impacts a friendly unit model, but the explosion effect of the giant water droplet bursting does not do any friendly fire damage. So just something to know there. It still does actually do friendly fire, just the explosion doesn't do friendly fire damage. But I decided to try them out, see how they do here. We've got 3 Blessed Field Trebuchets with some chevrons to make them more accurate and have better refire rate. Damsel Lore of Life. To lead the peasants on the ground, we've got the Beast Slayers of Baston, whole bunch of aforementioned peasants. The general of the army will be Albric, up in the air with his trident, ready to hunt some dinos, and to help him out with that, we've got 3 units of questing knights, including the companions of Cornell. Nice armor piercing, and with Albric, they will get anti-large, of course, as well. So yeah, right off the bat, you can see we are going to be just absolutely blessing the Star Chamber Guardians with all of the blessings. Already a full 5 unit models taken down, but let's see here, see if those peasants can get some accurate blessings in here. Pretty good stuff. Ooh, absolute brutality. And you see the explosion actually does damage to enemy targets, but you will see later on in the battle that it does not do damage to friendly targets. Again, though, if the projectile impacts a friendly unit model directly, like if it hits them directly, it will still do damage to them. But here we've got horned ones rushing in. You can see I'm moving forward with some of my infantry. Pizza delivery going to be a little bit misplaced there, a little bit mistimed, but that's fine. Alberix drops down to give these peasant mobs some anti-large, so super overpowered, obviously. Meanwhile, over on the far side, we're going to get an engagement between some questing knights here. Regrowth on them. They're matched up directly against some Cold One Spear Riders. They should be able to sustain that fight, but here comes, once again, more pizza delivery right on top of these questing knights. That is going to immediately negate the effectiveness of my regrowth, so a little bit tough there, but that's okay. We still got some reserves of questing knights over here, and the trebuchet is definitely doing some great work in the center. More pizza deliveries as the companions rush in, and we're also going to unleash the tidal wave here to try and rout off these Cold One Spear Riders. It does some decent damage to them, and then of course I'm going to massacre a whole bunch of my own peasants as well and lead to them routing. That's fine. Popopox cohort also rushing in here. Their elite anti-large AP will do quite well, but I am firing danger close. I didn't fully realize at this point that, you know, again, the explosion doesn't damage friendlies, but the actual impact will, and you'll see here in just a minute what I'm talking about. But Popopox cohort going to be the next target for the trebuchets, just kind of focusing individually each elite anti-large AP unit, trying to just whittle them down here. You can see the Star Chamber Guardians take a ton of damage already, and the Popopox cohort as well, just getting absolutely wrecked by those trebuchets. So definitely quite happy with the performance of the Blessed Field trebuchets so far. They've definitely been carrying, doing a lot of damage to high-value targets. You can see that other reserve of questing knights came in, eventually did end up winning this fight, but the Cold Ones are going to be rushing in here now to try and turn that around. Got more Cold One Knights kind of piling in here. Meanwhile, in the back line, I do have some peasants rallying. I'm just going to kind of keep them back to try and protect the artillery pieces from now on. You can see the Beastslayers of Baston matched up against the Regiment of Renowned Temple Guard. I mean, oh yeah, you can see there what I'm talking about. The direct impact of the projectile will still hurt friendly targets, but like that explosion of water you saw did not hurt that little Beast Slayer there. So yeah, it's a nice change. It does make them marginally more useful firing into like a danger close blob like this. It would be nice if the direct impact projectile still wouldn't do any damage. I don't know if that's actually possible, but that was a really good shot right there. You saw the Temple Guards flew over, but the Knights were completely unaffected by that, so that's some pretty good stuff. Croak, of course, knows all about not damaging friendlies, as his pizza delivery drops down, does not damage the Temple Guard at all, of course. And yeah, I'm assuming that them programming this effect for Lord Croak is the ability, now gives them the ability to give it to other units, like the Soulfire, for example, and the Blessed Field Trebuchet as well. I do think this actually could potentially help some particular matchups. This one, I do think the mass field trebuchets could work okay here. Because the Lizardmen are relatively slow and you can kind of fight them at an arm's length with your own cavalry, you can then shell, like I said, high-value targets like Temple Guard, you know, their cavalry that's relatively low model count. You can also shell quite effectively. So yeah, pretty good stuff. It is going to be pretty close in the late game, though. Gorok's still quite tanky. Lord Croak has some HP left. He's getting low, but Star Chamber Guardians, of course, being a very elite unit, not wanting to rout off here. We're going to drop one more wave. Mostly will do friendly fire, but again, no big deal. They're just peasants. Even if they are elite peasants, they'll actually hold in terms of their leadership. And the trebuchet is continuing to fire in here, probably doing more friendly harm than not at this point, but we're really just trying to finish off Lord Croak here. That Shield of the Eons from Gorok will help him, make him a lot more tanky. Gives him, of course, expert charge defense and additional armor, so I actually quite like using them in tandem. Of course, it's very thematic as well, but yeah, you can see the Cold Ones here continuing to get shelled. Some Skinks did get into the back line, are going to start to interrupt the artillery crews, but I've mostly gotten my value from them already anyway. But yeah, companions pulling back. I just decide, you know what, let's maybe see if we can at least bail out some of these artillery crews. I do want to hold on to them as long as I can, so maybe not. Lord Croak's obviously a big danger here, so we're going to come back for a quick charge, finish him off, and then pull back away, sort of leaving Gorok and his Temple Guard here in the dust. And yeah, crossfire from these various trebuchets able to rout off those horned ones. This unit of skinks here suffering pretty badly in the side. We've got two very tattered units of cav as the Popo Pox cohort get hunted down by a few questing knights here. And we also terrify away those skink cohort. We're going to finish off the Temple Guard here as well. Star Chamber Guardians just kind of getting outclassed by multiple models at this point. But you saw there where the projectile directly impacted those two knights. It still did the damage, right? So yeah, just something to watch out for. It's not completely no friendly fire, but it's pretty decent. At this point, though, it's pretty much just a matter of cycle charging Gorok to death, so we'll go ahead and fast forward through this late game a bit, as Gorok will take some time to give up the ghost, but eventually he is going to realize that he is just completely outclassed here. But yeah, very good battle from HTS. I do think that this is actually going to be a decent change for Bretonnia. It will make the Blessed Field Trebuchets a little bit less risky to use, firing into your own blobs like that. Like, yes, you may still impact your own unit models and do damage that way, but the explosion not damaging and staggering your own unit models especially is very helpful, because of course if you're firing into a blob and it explodes and staggers only your opponent's unit models, then your guys can do free attack animations while your opponent's staggered, right? So even just the stagger effect could be decently useful there in supporting a melee engagement, but just the kills as well. I mean, granted, this was a pretty small Lizardmen build, but with still decent kill totals all across the board here for the trebuchets. Questing Knights, of course, doing some heavy lifting. Companions of Cornell are going to be excellent here, especially with Alberic giving them anti-large. I do like Alberic quite a bit now in this matchup. The wave is really good for proccing big terror routes, especially for units like Skinks. And yeah, of course, the anti-large very pertinent in supporting Questing Knights especially. Yeah, from HTS's side, a pretty decent build. I would personally say, I don't know, actually. I might change out these horned ones for some additional Temple Guard instead, and maybe just going a little bit wider on Skinks to try and run down peasants, but I'm not really sure. It's definitely going to be an interesting one. Of course, you could go the opposite route and take, like, you know, double Carnosaur with a life Slan, or, you know, maybe the Dread Saurian wouldn't be a terrible idea in this matchup, although I think it could potentially get cycle charged to death by Alberic, or like if it gets surrounded by the companions with Alberic buffing them with anti-large, that's going to be really, really bad. But we'll see. It's definitely going to be an interesting matchup moving forward. But let's go on to the next replay before I ramble too much. Alright, and we're back with the Empire, going to be taking on Bretonnia. So we've got two Bretonnia games in a row. How about that? Volkmar the Grim going to be leading the way. We've also got a steam tank, so double chariot time. We've got Warrior Priest supporting the Royal Altar of Cryphites, Jade Wizard here, some supporting Pistoliers, a whole line of state troops, and some additional Pistoliers out on the side. For Turin's Bretonnia, he's got King Lewin up in the air, some Questing Knights, Defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis. He's got Companions of Cornell as well, with the Damsel Lore of Life, Men-at-Arms, and Battle Pilgrims mixed in the front line. So yeah, right off the bat, the steam tank going to be generating some excellent value, side-shotting through these units of cav. This side-style shot is the most brutal. Unfortunately, that shot did hit the hill, but already got 9 kills on that one unit of Questing Knights. Over here, we've got some yeomen that were vanguarded in the corner. Going to get a hold of my Pistoliers somewhat, but we should be able to bail them out. These Pistoliers do get a bit out of position, and those yeomen are going to sort of be able to chase them up and around, so should be an interesting situation. Meanwhile, on the front line, you can see here, I'm moving the steam tank up to sort of help disrupt, and again, using that cannon shot to go after those Bretonnian cavalry, going to generate some really excellent value. Volkmar himself is loaded up with some AoE damage. We've got Soulfire and Banishment, so hopefully I can use both of those to good effect here. But yeah, we're going to move forward with these units to try and disrupt. I definitely understand that the Battle Pilgrims in a standard situation would win, so I do need to support with my chariots against them versus my state troops to make sure that we get a good engagement here. Likewise, the Warrior Priest going to charge in here. And here comes the Banishment in the back line. The Questing Knight's also going to charge in here. That banishment actually just rips apart those archers, so that's great. Questing Knight's jumping in here, and here comes all of the buffs from the Warrior Priest. We're also going to get the Steam Tank with the Hammer of Sigmar as well, so quite the wild situation here. You can see the Royal Altar of Cryptites getting quite a few kills against high-value cav, and Volkmar also comes in and drops all of his stuff as well, so a lot of AoE burst damage is already routed off some of these Battle Pilgrims, some of these other Battle Pilgrims over here. You can see, though, Bretonnia is winning out on this flank, with the Mounted Yeomen, Spearmen, and Battle Pilgrims just overwhelming several groups of state troops, and you can see my Pistoliers that had been chased up into that corner did get routed off as well. So definitely some give and take. The Steam Tank still got plenty of ammo, though, was able to kind of sit in a nice position here on the end of this line and fire into various units. And those Mounted Yeomen immediately going to get terrified away, but probably should be focusing on Lewin right now. That being said, he is pretty danger close to Volkmar. Volkmar popping off his buffs once again. And the Warrior Priest as well. This is a little bit of a misplaced Soulfire. It's not going to generate that much value at the end of the day. But yeah, King Lewin taking quite a bit of damage from those Altdorf Cryptites and various other units there. So we're going to have to be careful. These Yeomen trying to get into my Pistoliers. We're going to screen out with those Spearmen. And a little bit of an overchase here with these Swordsmen, who should be coming up back and re-engaging here. But that's okay. You can see the Companions getting pretty low. We've dealt with quite a bit of the Questing Knights already, but they do still have some HP left, and you can see the Altdorf Gryphites as well, for myself, are getting very low at this point. We're going to try and keep them healed up as best we can, but they have lost quite a few unit models already, a good half their unit models already, so a little bit rough there. It looks like a regrowth on these Companions, and unfortunately the Steam Tank trying to support in melee here, really not doing that great of a job. The Pistoliers, though, getting some good Overwatch fire on King Lewin, but the Altdorf Cryptites actually shatter there, which is really bad. Thankfully, Volkmar still very, very healthy, and the Steam Tank as well can be able to is able to tank out quite a bit of damage here. Bad situation for the Jade Wizard, though, getting ganged up on here. The Damsel even will do pretty well just in terms of combat stats. The Damsel's actually a little bit better in terms of her melee attack, less melee defense, but a little bit less weapon strength as well, but I do think with support, the Damsel would probably win that fight. Likewise, Warrior Priest trying to extricate himself, so a little bit of a dicey situation at this point. What initially had looked very favorable. Volkmar is also getting caught up by King Lewin at this point, which is not the best. Not the best Soulfire either, but it might have done a tiny bit of damage to King Lewin. The Steam Tank also kind of isolated here, so not the best situation, but we're going to try and rally some of these other units together here, see if we can't make something happen at the very least. But yeah, you can see here another banishment going to be dropped, and the Steam Tank will continue to support. I'm not really sure about this unit of Spearmen. This replay might have got slightly desynced because this wasn't an old update, but the battle more or less is still playing out how I remember, so that's fine. That banishment is going to generate a lot of value, though, just rolling immediately directly over those Questing Knights. Just absolute value train there. The Steam Tank getting gooned by Lewin a little bit here is not the best, but of course the Warrior Priest is still alive with that Soulfire, able to juice up with a bunch of buffs, and that Soulfire comes down and finishes off quite a few unit models for those Questing Knights. So pretty decent stuff. We might be able to potentially salvage a win here, but it does look like the Jade Wizard, unfortunately, is being routed off there. But yeah. Yeah, good stuff so far. The Steam Tank is catching some more healing, but the Steam Gun will be reasonably effective here. If I can actually cycle charge the Steam Tank into Lewin, should be able to do some good damage to him directly, but we'll see. The Warrior Priest still being alive at this point is very critical. I can also get a little bit of Overwatch fire from the Pistoliers there, so yeah, we'll see. I do have this relatively healthy unit of Spearmen as well that can kind of stand here and fight with Volkmar. There are still some Battle Pilgrims. It's a very healthy unit of Battle Pilgrims, so we're going to try and use the fact that I have Chariots to my advantage and go after my opponent's infantry here. Turin, realizing what the deal is, going to be just focusing his armor piercing of Lewin on my two big high value targets, which is obviously very smart. But Warrior Priest comes in, he might get a little side shot or something here, maybe not. It is going to be a little bit of a grind out in this late game here, and you can see these Pistoliers, they might try and screen out these Questing Knights. Honestly, I probably should be focusing, but Lewin here, you can see, takes a bunch of damage as the Chariots actually kind of charge him from different directions. He's getting poked by Spearmen, he's getting poked by Volkmar as well. Suddenly, not the greatest situation in the world for Lewin, and he does have quite a bit of healing cap space left. Call down the bombardment there just to pile on everything that we can. And yeah, Lewin's even going to maybe get hit by a couple of those projectiles. Nope, not quite. But the Peasant Archers continuing to pour in fire here is pretty bad for me. I mean, my big units are heavily armored, but of course that volume of fire over time will add up. Thankfully, some Spearmen here able to rout off that Damsel, and I said they were desynced. They might not have been. These guys might be desynced, though. Defenders of the Fleur-de-Lis, I'm not sure either. But this main fight, again, still turning out more or less as I remembered. King Lewin is getting very, very low at this point, but we'll see. Does look like he actually routes there, which is going to stop the regeneration. And, you know what, actually? I think Turin won this. I think this replay might have been a little bit desynced. I'm not 100% sure. I do remember Turin actually winning this one, so you'll have to check on his channel. If this replay was desynced, I apologize. It says it was a victory for me, but I remember distinctly that Turin was able to actually win that one out. I don't remember. Huh, interesting. You'll have to check. I wonder if he's going to be casting on his channel. I would hope so. It was a really, really fun game, but I seem to remember that Lewin actually managed to pull that one out and was not routed off there, but maybe this replay ended up being desynced. I mean, there were some units kind of standing around weirdly there, so that usually is a sign that potentially there was some desync issues, but then again, you know, we are prone to forgetting units occasionally in different places, right? But regardless, this would be a pretty decent build against Bretonnia. It didn't actually work. Like I said, I think Turin, if I remember right, actually won that game. But I do think something like this would work pretty well. You may want to just come in and like cut this unit of swordsmen to give shields to these spearmen to help protect against missile fire, give them better melee defense as well, and maybe try and get some better I don't know, maybe more cavalry of some kind. Like if you were to play with some of the costs a little bit, some of the abilities, you could upgrade one of these Pistoliers to Empire Knights. But honestly, just having this big sustain force, like these two super tanky chariots with your Alpha Strike squad and some healing, then you can just do tons of AoE damage, of course, tons of damage from Volkmar. The Warrior Priests also supporting with the Soulfire, pretty decent there, but yeah, maybe that replay was a little bit desynced. I'll have to go back and check with Turin, because I don't remember it exactly playing out like that. But regardless, very fun battle. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. Let's go on to the next replay. Alright, and we're back with Beastmen versus Empire. I've got this one paused because, as you can see here, we are going mass Vanguard. So let's get to the armies before the action gets underway. Kazrak, the One Eye, leading a mass Vanguard here. Of course, Ungor Spearman Herd now have, like other Ungors, stock and Vanguard deployment. So it does make a big Vanguard like this a little bit less risky. Because of the spears, you're less prone to getting face charged by a bunch of cav and immediately destroyed. We've got 3 Raiders and several Goreherds with shields, including the Blackhorn's Ravagers. A Bray Shaman not too far behind, Lore of Beasts with the Manticore summon. And we've also got Pan's Pelt to give physical resistance and speed. And then over here, we've got a mobile squad, Sons of Goros, Centaurs with great weapons, and 2 poisoned warhounds. As for Turin's army, Marcus Wolfhart regretting his life decisions as he is right up front and center with several units of huntsmen ready to get destroyed. We've also got some spearmen as well, an amber wizard up in the air, as well as an amethyst wizard, so very heavy on the lord sniping. We've also got Sigmar's Sons, some additional halberdiers supporting the back, Zintler's Reichsguard. So let's get the fun underway. You can see right off the bat those huntsmen going to be pulling back and trying to get to their own lines, and my Raider's going to be generating some excellent value here against those huntsmen right off the bat. Kazrak decides YOLO charge. Let's go straight into the flagellants here, and you can see these halberdiers going to be moving up to support. Likewise, the Griffin and the Death Wizard both drop down. This is a pretty nasty situation for Kazrak, but we're going to support with these Goreherds with shields, Spirit Leech going off, and all across the line you can see it's just a massive engagement. Beastmen will definitely get the upper hand in several of these engagements. Goreherds with shields match up very well with state troops, and we're in range to start summoning a Manticore. Likewise, the Raiders pouring in fire onto those huntsmen. They're going to be generating excellent value. And here comes the Manticore summon. We're going to send that straight after Marcus, just directly after him, no other target, because we definitely need to take him out as quickly as possible. Kazrak popped everything here to give himself massive melee stats to be able to hold out against this Amber Wizard while he was netted there, and now we're going to try and get out of there. Well, you know what, maybe not. I decided to just leave him in there and rear charge with the Bray Shaman Chariot here. We're actually going to be able to do a lot of damage to the Amber Wizard like this, where he's stuck in between these 2 unit models and can't really escape. You can see him just getting chunked down right there super aggressively. He does get the Manticore summon off, but unfortunately gets routed off, and my own Manticore is busy chewing on Marcus, so this is a bad situation for Marcus. This is one of the main downsides to him, is that he is pretty squishy, and since he burned his net over on the far side, he wasn't able to protect himself with it, right? So I can then get the Manticore on top of him. The front line crumbled pretty quickly for the Empire as well, as that Beastman rush was just right on top of him with superior units. Now we're getting into the back line and cleaning up some of those Huntsmen as well. So it's going to be a quick victory for the Beastmen, but a super fun battle, and I do think that this is one way to potentially mitigate the Lord sniping of Marcus, is just to start out right on top of your opponent. And really, there are a handful of factions, more than a couple, I would say, that can do this reasonably effectively right now. Like the Beastmen, obviously, Greenskins, Wood Elves now as well with Orion in Vanguard can go super aggressive in your face. There, you know, quite a few other factions, I would say. Even like Vampire Coast, you can pull off some interesting heavy Vanguard builds if you go with Arnessa's faction. Go with lots of the Free Company, the dual hand weapon, and the pistol variant. And of course, because Mournguls have Vanguard as well, you can support with Monstrous Infantry. There are quite a few different factions that I think potentially you could go with the heavy Vanguard and just overwhelm Empire missile build like this. But yeah, you can see Marcus in the back here just getting absolutely showered by Ungol Raiders there. He is definitely having a tough time, and I did fail to mention the Zintler's Reichsguard just getting completely caught up by the Sons of Goros and Centaurs with great weapons here. Really rough stuff, but yeah, Marcus making his way through these hounds here. They might take a few swings, and kind of strange how the nets work sometimes, but yeah. We're going to go after Marcus with the hounds to try and clean things up. Spirit Leech on some of these cav from the Deathcaster that is still alive. Did take quite a bit of damage, but both my leadership units did end up getting sniped, obviously. This Lord sniping build was very, very heavy from Turin. But at the same time, we were able to do enough damage quickly enough that, I mean, 3.5 minutes in, we basically won the battle, right? So, yes, the Lord sniping is real, but if you can win before they are able, like literally before they are able to snipe your Lord, then you still have got a shot. So yeah, I mean, obviously this build isn't going to work every time, right, because it does very much rely on the element of surprise, but definitely the Beastmen can do this much better now. Like I said, having the Ungor Raiders, the Ungor Spearmen with shields in Vanguard, even just regular Ungor Spearmen, having the spears in Vanguard helps quite a bit in, again, not worrying about just getting face charged by a bunch of heavy cavalry in a matchup like this. Makes going all Vanguard not quite so risky, and definitely some fun, quite a bit of fun. Gonna have to try this out in some other matchups to see how well it works, but potentially a bit better than it was before. As for the Empire side, against the Beastmen, I would say probably just trade out these Halberdiers for more cavalry. Like, you could trade out those Halberdiers, downgrade the Zintler's Reichsguard to regular Reichsguard, and just bring a ton of Empire Knights, and this build honestly would be pretty solid. Flagellants are pretty good here. I do like the Huntsman. I would only take 2. I think 3 is maybe a little bit too heavy of an investment. So, like, just from my perspective, I would cut the Amethyst Wizard and bring a Warrior Priest to support maybe like the Altdorf Griffites, trade out the Halberdiers and one of the Huntsmen for a couple more units of Empire Knights, and then maybe go from there. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. I've got one more to show you guys for today, so let's get to it. Alright, and we're back with Balthazar Gelt, going to be defending Altdorf against Archaon the Everchosen. We've got a double Warrior Priest build, so over here a couple of Pistoliers going to be skirmishing some Marauder Horsemen. This is HDS that we're up against once again. He's got some throwing axes and some jabs, Chaos Boys and Warhounds, 2 units of Chaos Knights with lances, nice front line of some Marauders mixed with some Warriors with great weapons, and Archaon leading the way. I've got more Pistoliers out on the side, and 2 Warrior Priest squads leading a unit of Reichsguard. So yeah, we've also got quite a few veteran state troops, some Chevroned Halberdiers and Spearmen with shields for a nice defensive line. And of course, Gelt leading the way up in the air. Right off the bat, we're going to force a little bit of an engagement here. I wanted to see if I could get a nice bombardment to maybe fix this engagement in my favor. And it ends up being pretty much a sacrifice, so I end up losing out more or less the same amount of value as HDS here, so really not the best situation, but it is what it is. Managed to dodge a fireball there, and going to be pulling back as the frontline engagement gets underway here. You can see the Chaos Knights trying to find an open pocket to charge through. Of course, I have lots of just good anti-large infantry here, so they're not going to get the greatest charge. Spearmen are braced for the charge and do manage to hold them back somewhat. We've also got Halberdiers here, of course, as well, so pretty good stuff. A Reiksguard and one of the Warrior Priest squads coming out to this side, and the other one going to make their way up over to this side. Meanwhile, Pistoliers just kind of shooting up these Marauders here. We're perfectly fine with that. We did manage to catch these Hounds over here, these Poison Warhounds, but yeah, it's not going to be the best. Looks like we have a Fireball going on these Demigryph Knights. Overcast Plague of Rust on those Chaos Knights with Lances, so the Reiksguard will trade a little bit better there. The Fireball does quite a bit of damage, and then we also drop the buffs from the Warrior Priest. That is going to be pretty decent on those Chaos Knights. You can see they took quite a bit of damage there, and we also move into support with the Halberdiers against some of these Marauder Horsemen, so a pretty decent situation over on this side so far. Meanwhile, on the front line, Reiksguard are going to get a really nice charge, and again, they drop that Soulfire here, but a beautiful Burning Head by HDS is just going to rip apart a bunch of those Chevron State Troops, and they are quite expensive with the Chevrons, so that is quite painful there. Very good use of that spell. Meanwhile, on the front line here, these Spearmen with Shields, despite their veterancy, are getting ground down by Archaon himself. They've done a bit of damage, but likewise, that Overcast Final Transmutation did a bit as well. These Reiksguard getting a little bit caught up here. Those Halberdiers are also in a bit of a desperate situation, so we'll go ahead and pull away, but this is not the greatest. These Reiksguard are now going to get side charged by a unit of Chaos Knights with Lances and sort of get strung out between these different units because we didn't get a very good engagement there. Thankfully, the buffs, the resistance, and everything will help mitigate some of that damage, but just that pocket is crumbling very quickly, so I'm going to try and extricate my Reiksguard, but they're really not going to be able to disengage very effectively there. Meanwhile, these Reiksguard over here did manage to get pretty good engagement, but I've just left them a little overlong here, I think. We really needed to be pushing through, cycle charging a bit more, maybe cleaning up some of these lighter Marauders as well, but so far, decent, although this is bad. Archaon getting a hold of this Warrior Priest here is very bad for me, and again, this unit of Reiksguard just got way too caught up in this big formation here, and these two units of Chaos Knights able to grind them down, and likewise, those Fireballs are doing quite a bit of damage to Balthazar. Archaon just continuing to throw them up in the air for Balthazar to catch, but these Reiksguard here charging through did manage to pick up another XP Chevron, another nice round of Faith buffs here, and we're going to see that Soulfire come down. Doesn't do the most against the heavily armored Chaos Warriors, especially because not too many of them were in that blob. But yeah, the Reiksguard getting direct charge by Archaon and his Knights, really not the best situation. My veteran infantry aren't doing the greatest job. You can see they're actually doing okay against the Chaos Halberdiers here. The Chaos with great weapons. I do like the veteran Halberdiers a bit, but I think the veteran Spears was maybe a little bit of a mistake. Probably should have cut the chevrons on them to upgrade those two Reiksguard squads to Demigryph squads. And then I think this build would work a lot better, but even still, having the Warrior Priest supporting the Reiksguard did okay, but at this point, things are just not looking great. We're just getting ground down through attrition, and yeah, these Pistoliers are not going to be able to hold out for long. We haven't done enough damage to those Chaos Knights, not nearly, so we're going to fast forward a little bit as, yeah, this Warrior Priest, you can see it does decent damage, but it doesn't do the most armor piercing, and those Chaos Knights were able to shrug off most of that damage, so I know a lot of you guys were worried about the Soulfire thing. Honestly, yeah, this replay just kind of shows it's really not as broken as you might seem. I do think it needs a max number of uses. I think 3 or 4 would be fine. And at that point it would be perfectly balanced, but even as it is, the damage really, I mean, it's something. It's not nothing, absolutely, but like in this battle, it didn't win me the battle by any means, and you know, it had the potential to do a lot of damage, but really the support buffs, I think, are still even more powerful. Again, I do think it needs a max number of casts, but once that happens, it's going to be just fine, guys. Yeah, and the other thing too is the Warrior Priest is not the tankiest of characters. Like, you do have to bring it on him, right? And he is relatively easily sniped. I mean, has only 30 melee defense. 85 armor is okay, but 30 melee defense is pretty poor. He does have relatively low HP as well. He's really not much of a combatant in and of himself. Really more of a support character. So yeah, you can see here in this replay, both the Warrior Priests ended up getting killed and just weren't able to generate enough value over the course of the battle. Halberdiers, though, I do like the Chevron Halberdiers in this matchup. I might be trying that out a little bit more, potentially in some more replays. But yeah, Balthazar drops down here to fight Archaon one-on-one, just to try and finish things up. But yeah, that's going to be it. Well played to HDS, and yeah, Chaos Knights with Lance is pretty decent here. Whoops, not sure what happened there with the end of the replay, but it's not actually going to show us any of the kill totals, which is unfortunate. Something about that must have been a little bit desynced, but anyway, very well played to HDS. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching that. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.